Hello, everybody, and welcome into this edition of One Nation Weather. We've got multiple areas of storms to watch over the course of the next few days, and really long term, we could see some storms due to a system that's going to be basically sitting into portions of Canada. We've got information on all of that in this video, talking about those near term severe weather outlooks, as well as the cool air potentially to spill into the northern and central tier of the country as we go not just this week, but into next week as well. That's in this One Nation Weather forecast for America. So thank you so much for joining me here. It's the afternoon of July 5th, 2023, and we're talking about the forecast through the next week. So let's go ahead and start with your Thursday weather forecast for you here. Look at this, a cold front sinking southeastward for us here. I know we've had a lot of those, and we're going to have another one starting to enter the picture as we go into Friday. But for now, scattered showers and storms entering the southeast as well as the east coast where we will see some of those heavy downpours in the afternoons. But also look at this, we've got this area of severe weather coming out of southeast Montana down into Oklahoma, along with a flood threat there, as the back end of that front really curls around, even though it is not shown on that map. Now you can see 70s entering the plains, so it's not going to be the most supportive environment, but the best support for these storms is going to come into portions of the panhandle of Oklahoma, where we have just enough cool air as well as just enough hot air meeting on up there, with plenty of 90s and even 80s and 90s pushing into the northeast for us here. So 90s really including most of the southern and eastern tier of the country for us here. So here's that risk. There's the level 3 of bullseye. It includes eastern Colorado from places like Denver through Dodge City, Kansas, as well as towards Enid, Oklahoma for us here. That's where we're going to see that risk, the level 2, going down towards Oklahoma City as well. So there's that wind outlook. You can see in that enhanced zone, that's where we've got that wind outlook at really a 3 out of 5, and we could see some of these gusts get 80, 90 miles per hour in intensity, as well as back along the west end of that zone. That's where we have some of these hailstones that could get 2 inches in diameter, even 3 inches in diameter, which is when you're getting into that tennis ball, that baseball size zone for us here. Now here's a look at the tornado outlook from places like Sterling, Colorado, down over to Colorado Springs. That's where the best chance for tornadoes will be, though this goes on up to Montana. In this zone, I'm expecting maybe 3 to 5 tornadoes total, but that is not zero, and that can impact communities like these ones you see on your screen for us here. So just be ready to get in a safe place, that lowest, most interior room of your house, or duck down, get in a ditch if you're in a vehicle for us here. Now your storm energy late Thursday afternoon, plenty of it surging northward, moderate to high levels of it. So even though the temperatures are going to be cool, that doesn't mean the storm energy is not going to be there. Now notice how on the composite reflectivity from pivotal weather, we have these storms into portions of eastern, say, Wyoming for us here. There's going to be more of these up into Montana as well. These storms will be pushing southeast, so we'll watch these entering South Dakota, Nebraska as we go towards, say, 11 p.m. But look at how these new storms start to fire off into, again, these eastern zones, say, Colorado Springs eastward for us here in Colorado, into western and central Kansas. But notice how I put this question mark zone for us here in the panhandle of Oklahoma. While it is warmer and more unstable in this zone, will there be any storms that develop? The HRRR model not really indicating anything, and other models are not either. Just a big blowup of these massive wind and hail makers making their way to central Nebraska and eastern Nebraska, as well as portions of Kansas. So we'll track this closely for you here, but it's really just looking like a bunch of storms in the areas not within that enhanced zone. But I can guarantee you any storms that fire up in the enhanced zone will have the ability to pack a very major punch, so be ready for those anyway. Now, here's a look at the flood risk as we go into Thursday and Thursday night. Again, scattered storms in the east and in the central part of the country could produce some flooding, but look at this, the level 2 zone, Kansas and into Oklahoma for us there. Notice how the panhandle of Oklahoma, really on the outskirts of that, because that's not where the worst of these storms will be. There's the rainfall. Again, I think this could be more from central Kansas down into Oklahoma, but we could see some 2-inch totals in these zones. Now, as we go into our Friday, severe weather risk includes Denver, yes, all the way on over to places in western Missouri for us here, going over towards St. Louis as well. We could see at least a few severe storms as this front sags southward. Look at the cooler air pushing on in 70s with 80s and 90s. Notice backing off in the temperature department a little bit in the northeast, but still very warm in the southern tier for our Friday. Here's that level 2 threat again. The level 1 risk goes right on over there towards St. Louis. We have all of Nebraska in on the level 1, most of Oklahoma in on this as well, with the level 2 threat surrounding that in that bullseye zone. The level 1 risk surrounding that level 2 bullseye zone. Here's the storm energy available. You can see the most storm energy will be in portions of South Kansas as well as portions of north central Oklahoma, and that's where these storms could get going. Again, might be a little bit overdone, but nonetheless, these storms really developing and pushing on off towards the southeast, which is where we could see some of these flooding chances go over into Missouri and Arkansas as well, not just Kansas and Oklahoma for your Friday night. And these storms will really be progressing southeastward as we go into the day on Saturday as well, which is why the flood threat looks to initially be into portions of Kansas and Oklahoma as I see it right now. Now notice more of this those cool airs sagging southward. This will include the Ohio Valley starting to get nicer, even down into portions of Kansas. Colorado will be quite nice for us on a Saturday temperature-wise, but the south and east still dealing with some 80s and 90s. The worst heat will be right along this Mexico border for us here, though, for sure. As you can see, more of these pop-up storms get going Saturday late day. The energy from our Friday kind of pushes eastward into portions of the south central. We'll see more of these storms fire up into portions of the west central plains for us here, which is why, we've got this wind energy pushing on in. So we'll watch with the storm energy that comes on up. We'll watch for more of these storms, but it doesn't look to be organized as we go to Saturday afternoon as it looks right now. Portions of the western Dakotas, portions of Montana curling around through these zones where we've got that Thursday risk, and then that shifts all the way eastward into the southeast. But again, I don't really anticipate all of these zones to get severe weather. It's just kind of low uncertainty that someone does. Now, as we go into our Sunday, look at this, 90-degree readings, yes, still continuing into portions of the immediate southeast. Just a lot of backed off moderate temperatures into portions of the northern tier of the country. It will still be warm in the northeast for us here, with southern zones staying on the hot side as well. The upper level pattern on Sunday explains why it's cooler. We have cooler air in the upper levels. That's going to come down to the surface with these storms. We also have these drier air pockets making their way through the Great Lakes, and especially through the west coast for us here. And as that drier air enters central parts of the country, that will, yes, protect us from some of the storms there as well on Sunday. But look at how we get these storms to blossom with that low pressure system. You can see the tail end of that spin there entering the upper peninsula of Michigan, and then firing off these storms with that southern end energy, and that will include portions of the northeast as we go into Sunday. The storm's track will be up the east coast with drier air filtering back into portions of the northern plains temporarily. We could see a few severe storms into portions of the upper peninsula of Michigan back through Nebraska, but I think our best chance for severe weather Sunday is going to go from Maine and especially back here into portions of Arkansas, Louisiana, as well as into Mississippi, along that Mississippi River, that lower part of that Mississippi River Valley. Monday afternoon setup shows more pop-up storms possible, with this cooler air being the main thing that we're watching. So here's the temperature anomaly for this Thursday through next Thursday. Notice here's round one of the cool air with heat surrounding it on the east and west coasts. But look at how the second round comes in around Tuesday to Wednesday of next week. That looks to be another big blast. And right where the cool air meets the warmer, that's where we could watch for another chance for some severe weather to develop, keeping a close eye on that down the long run. And then your upper level pattern trends, look at this, a system diving down out of portions of northern Canada and really just lingering around, circling around above portions of Michigan and the Great Lakes region. So we'll keep an eye on that as that continues swirling around. And what that's going to do is you can see some of these pockets of moisture moving east into this weekend. And then notice how we get another little set of some of this moisture to try and fire off some storms. Very hard to do in that dry air, but a few of these might fire off and push southeast as we go into the middle of next week as that low pressure continues wrapping around. So we'll watch that closely. So here's a look at the headlines recap. Watching a lot of things closely, right? Level 2 to 3 risk in the plains for some of the severe weather for locations under Thursday. Scattered severe storms will develop from Colorado to Oklahoma, with a few tornadoes, wind gusts up to 90 miles per hour, and 1 to 3 inch hail expected. The storm threat will shift eastward by the weekend, targeting some of these zones in the central states as well as into the New England zone Sunday. Storm systems in Canada will not back down, bringing more of the wind and hail threats potentially as that cooler air hits the central tier with 10 to 20 degree departures from average, as well as the northeast and western zones for us here looking to stay above average as it looks right now. By the way, 3 quick questions with me. What is my channel? One Nation Weather is the perfect place to find accurate forecasts centered around the USA's weather, along with the Atlantic Ocean for tropical updates. What kind of content do I make? 5 to 10 minute videos. This one might be a little longer, called Forecast for America every day or two. I also make updates in YouTube Shorts and sometimes do posts. Why should you subscribe? You will find unique forecasts here that make it easy for anybody to understand the weather. Plus, I am posting frequently, so you'll never be left behind. So go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button now that you know what this channel is and you've seen the video, and here are the credits.